Hi, and welcome to another Lockdown Equipment Talk. It's Paul Kelly here, and today I'm going to be talking about putter fitting. And one of the aspects of a putter fitting that most people don't take into account, which is what type of hosel suits you best on your putter in order for you to make good contact in the middle of the face and square the club face. So I hope you enjoy this. So what we're going to look at today is we're going to look at a few different putters that have different hosel configurations, and these are all putters of mine. One of them in particular I've used for many, many years. The other two have been fairly recent over the last couple of years, and I just want to be able to talk and show you why I've moved from one to another at different times. So we'll start at the top. We've got three different putters, like I said. They're all Odyssey. The first one is a Triple Track 10. And the suitability score based upon the putting data that I have is 97.6. So very, very good. Anything over 85 is extremely good. Anything over 90 is fantastic. If you hit 97, 98, 99, put it in your bag and don't ever take it out. The second putter is the Stroke Lab number one. This is more of a kind of a traditional style putter that most people would see, what they call a blade, and that has a suitability score of 84.4. So not quite as good as suited for me as the first one. And then the last one is the Stroke Lab Tuttle. It has a suitability score of 99.5, and that's what's in my bag. And until something can knock it out, it's not coming out. So if we look at the going down the columns here to the right of this, we have our face angle at impact. So that's in degrees. That's telling me where the face is at the moment of the strike of the ball. Positives would be open, negatives would be closed. Then we have the strike point, which is position on the club face in relationship to center, and that's measured in millimeters, which is plus is to the toe, negative is to the heel. And then we have face rotation in degrees, and that tells us how our club is opening and closing during the stroke. And those are in relationship to the path. The first component of any putter fitting is getting the face angle nailed down at impact. Without your face being pointed at where you want the ball to go, the ball is not going to go on track. So the toe hang is one of the main contributors to what happens to your face at impact. The more toe hang, the more face will rotate, open, and close, and the less toe hang, the less face will open and close. So what we're doing is we're finding the amount of rotation in that face that suits your stroke and brings the club back to square based on your natural stroke, the one that you make when you're playing rather than you have to manipulate it. This one we can see works really well. It's bringing myself back to zero point 0.1 degree off of alignment, which is absolutely fantastic. Anything under 1 degree gives you a chance at a 10-foot putt. 0.1 means that I can be quite a ways away from the hole and still have that face pointing at the hole based on that 0.1. So now we get into the sight line. The sight line is extremely important because it's going to help influence where you hit the ball on the face. And we want to get the ball in the middle of the face so that we're getting maximum return of energy on our ball and we're not coming up short or long. So you imagine it like an iron or a driver. If you hit the ball out on the toe, there's a certain amount of energy loss and a certain amount of spin put on the ball. If you hit the ball on the heel, it's the same thing. We don't get the same distance of a center strike. So with this sight line, you can see that I've drawn the red line in here. It brings that red line down, and my sight line coming down through the hosel will be back towards the heel. So when I look at the center of the club face, it still looks to be in the center versus say that red line came down and pointed more towards the middle of the club face. Now to me, that middle looks like the heel, and I would end up playing the ball out on the toe because to me it looks like that's where it would be, even though it's wrong. So it's a visual perception, and different people will see it different ways. So it's so important to find that sight line of the hosel that influences where the ball is going to be hit. So when I look at the impact position in relationship to heel to toe and center strike on this one, I am 3 millimeters off center to the toe. So that's exceptionally good and very small amount away from it. You also look at the consistency there. It's 2, 3, and 4 millimeters. So I'm always getting the same return of energy. Even if I was a little bit out on the toe, I know where my energy is coming from. I know what the ball is going to run like, and I'm not fluctuating back and forth with large numbers here. So I'm able to control the distance on this one fairly well. So the next putter in our line is the Odyssey 1. And it's your basic heel-toe weighted putter. It's called a blade normally. Most people have had one like this when they're playing golf, or they've had one when they started playing golf sometime along the line. It's got a suitability score from me of 84.4, which is still not pretty bad, but it's a long ways from the last one we looked at. And it does give me troubles on distance control, and I'll explain why and show why. So when we look at the face angle at impact here, we see that it's increased quite a bit from the 0.1 of the previous putter. We're now at 0.9, and we had a couple in there that were exceptionally high at 2.0 and 1.3. So this one is not square at impact in reference to the sight line. So I'm going to miss this one out to the right more often than I really am happy with. So let's look at the hosel configuration on this one, see if we can help figure out what's going on. We can see that the sight line comes down through the hosel and the red arrow points down through the back of the ball. So when I see the ball in relationship to the end of the hosel, to me the ball looks like it's on the heel, even though we can see from the white stripe on the back of the club head that the ball is dead center in the middle of the club face. However, to me, it seems to be on the heel, so I tend to cheat and slide the club back a little bit, and I make contact farther out on the toe. And this also explains why the club face opens a bit, because if you hit a ball out on the toe, the heel is going to swing, there's resistance there to the ball on the toe, and it ends up opening. So now I've got a club that's open and that I hit out on the toe just because of the sight lines. So the results of that give me a couple of erratic readings. I'm now 4.8 millimeters on average out on the toe, and my discrepancies range from 7 millimeters to 2 millimeters, which means on a series of strokes, I'm going to get different distance on each one. That's the difference of reaching the hole or putting something past the break. So this is part of the reason why this one doesn't really work for me. And once again, it's because of the sight line. So this brings us to our last putter, the Odyssey Tuttle. It's got a 30-degree toe hang, so it's the same amount of toe hang as the first putter we looked at, the number 10 mallet. And it's got a little bit less than the last one we looked at, the number 1. It's also got a flow neck hosel, which is a fairly straight hosel that comes down into the heel. And it's got a 99.5 success rate for me. So suitability score. This one is just very consistent. I'm lights out with this one, and it's going to stay in my bag until something can knock it out of there. When we look at the face angle at impact on the Tuttle, we're back into that 0.1. So we've improved quite a bit over the number 1, which we just looked at a minute ago. And this is quite consistent for me. I'm a little bit right or a little bit left, but I'm within the hole at 15 feet or so is how the numbers pan out. So once again, this one, part of it is the sight line and part of it is the alignment guides, but it just allows me to get the club face square. Now, here's our view of down the shaft and through the hosel, and we can see that if I follow that red arrow, it brings it down, and I'm still well behind the ball. So when the ball sits in the middle of the club face, to me it looks like it's in the middle of the club face, whereas on the previous one, the sight line came down that went through the ball, which meant that I tended to think the ball was more on the heel. So this one, it sits where it's supposed to sit, and it looks like it's where it's supposed to sit. So it just allows me to have good confidence that I'm going to make a stroke on this one that hits the middle of the club face. If we look at the strike point on this, we're averaging 1.2 millimeters off center, which is almost nothing. The biggest one is 3 millimeters off, which was some of the smallest ones on the other putter. So for this one, it gives me a really good distance control because I'm always hitting the putter in the same place. I'm always hitting it in the middle. And it's very unlikely that I would run putts short and long feeling that I'm making the same stroke. And once again, the relationship of the sight line to how I see the ball sitting in the middle of the club face. So here's our little summary of the 3 putters that we looked at, and they show them all across the top and then the sight lines down the hosel through the bottom. And you can see the 2 that have been giving me the most success, which are the ones in the middle and the one on the right-hand side. Both have a very similar sight line down through the hosel. I'm able to find the ball in the middle of the club face because it doesn't look like it's on the heel. If we go on to the one on the left, while it looks very nice and clean and tidy, we can see that when that arrow comes down and cuts through the back of the ball, it's easy to understand why I would continually think that the ball is on the heel and move it out towards the toe. So that's the one that's giving me the distance control. Now, other people may not see it this way, which is why there's so many different designs. And it's not a good or a bad design. It's just put there to allow people who see things different to find the one that works for them. So when you're looking at something, take into account this, and it might help you explain some of your misses or successes. So that's my putter talk for today during our lockdown. There are so many other parts of a putter fitting that I didn't touch on, such as length and grip size and lie angle and loft, things that we would look at during a fitting. We just focused on a couple of things here. So it just gives you an idea that even with this little much, that there's so much into finding a putter that fits your eye, fits your stroke, and grabbing something off the rack is really a lottery. And the chance of finding something that works for you, not looking at the data, is very, very slim. So once again, if you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer. Feel free to leave a comment or private message me or give me a phone call. I'm always available and looking forward to helping you. Thanks.